What's up, y'all? It's your boy Cleet the Geek, and I'm here with the review for the Thunderbolts. Let's go. Hey, that movie was fire. Now, as you saw in my first reaction, my initial reaction, I gave it an 8.9. Now, listen, if I had to think about it a little further, I'd probably give it a little higher, but I'm grading this in the context of the MCU, all right? Now, the MCU, it's all about continuity with the MCU, right? It's all about these smaller movies building up to bigger movies, the Avengers type level movies. So it has to have a certain continuity. That's why the score is what it is. But I think the tie-in at the end, which we'll get into the post credit scenes, is going to tie all of that in, and it makes it have that continuity that keeps it going and flowing. All right, so now let's dive into it. I'm gonna break it down like I talked about in my intro. We're gonna talk about the different aspects of the movie and how I do my grading system. Right now, this is what I live by, die by with my debates. Right, I get in debates with my family members. I get in debate with other creatives. We talk about, hey, watch this movie, this score and that score. And I broke it down to the five major areas that we typically would talk about, right? So we're gonna start off with the storyline. And listen, man, this is podcast style, right? This is just Cleet the Geek chopping it up with you guys style. So I'm gonna look at my notes, right? I'm just gonna have a chill time with y'all. I'm not Eric Voss, I'm not these guys who they have the whole setup, they could break it down. Maybe I'll get there soon, but right now I'm gonna give you authentic content where I could just chat it up with y'all and get y'all in. All right, enough with my intro. So let's talk about the storyline. Now, what I like about the storyline, it is basically Marvel's version of Suicide Squad, right? And I think Marvel needed something like that, something where it's a little bit more gritty, it's a little bit more down to earth, right? That's kind of what a lot of people like about the Daredevil series, and even the Hawkeye series, right? It gives you more of a grounded version of Marvel where the superpowers aren't like through the roof, right? But this movie does feature that, right? So before I go any further, spoiler alerts, all right? I'm gonna just be talking about the entire movie. So I don't want you to be like, oh man, you're telling me everything. Well, it's called a review, right? So hey, it's on you, all right? Okay, now storyline. Storyline was amazing, right? And what I liked about it was the fact that they brought you into the trauma of each of the characters, right? Now, I thought they could have did a little better or gave us a little bit more with the Taskmaster, because I thought her storyline was very interesting, but they did spend time on Helena. They spent time even on the U.S. agent and Bucky. So I appreciated it overall, and I liked how they just brought you into their world, brought you into the trauma of them basically being these anti-hero type individuals that in the core of them, they have some good aspects to them, but the way that they were brought up in the world kind of put them on the wrong side of some of these events, how they played out, right? With Helena being a part of the Red Room and she having no choice in being, trained and basically brought up in that world without her decision, right? She was brought up in that world, raised in it. You have Bucky obviously brainwashed and he's trying to get over the sins of his past. And then of course you have the the U.S. agent, right, which was Captain America at one point in the Disney Plus series, and he's dealing with these mental issues, and these issues of belonging and of having to prove himself. So he has this chip on his shoulder, and it causes him to lose control. And for all of the pressure to be Captain of America, that was just too much for him. So you really get into the depth of these characters, and it's really cool because you go on the journey with them. So in this story, Val DeFontaine, don't forget to say DeFontaine, she made an emphasis of that in the movie. She basically she's employing all of them in different capacities other than the Red Guardian. So she employs them in different capacities to basically, they're like marksmen, they're assassins, they carry out her dirty work on the slide. She has a whole company where, it's a shell company, right? And, it's kind of like Marvel's or this MCU's version of Oscorp. And I say this MCU because, you know, obviously that's still a Marvel storyline from Spider-Man, but it's like it's not in this world, right? In this universe. So, but anyway, she has her own organization, and they you know, she basically, through the guise of being the CIA director, she carries out these underground missions, and they're normally assigned to do those things, right? Now, in the story, what happens is she's trying to clean up, right? They're trying to take her down. The Congress are trying to take her down and get her out of her role as the CIA director. So she's trying to clean up shop. So she sends Val, Taskmaster, U.S. Agent, and Ghost, which is another character I didn't mention a few minutes ago, but her storyline with it being from Ant-Man and her not really being bad per se, but her looking to heal herself from the phasing thing that she was dealing with. You know, you see that these characters, they're all assigned to basically take each other out, right? Val sends them on a suicide mission, where the Suicide Squad comes into the equation. So she sends them on this suicide mission. They all are there to basically kill each other, and they get into this room where it's an incinerator, right? So it's literally just designed for them to get in there and try to, you know, take each other out, but then get all burnt up in the same equation, right? So it was a sinister deal by Val, right? And then you have this character that they meet, Bob. Bob is in the incinerator, and he was basically a failed project that basically spilled out of the containment portal thing, not portal, but the containment thing he was in. All right, he was in that thing. All right, and he fell out of it in the tussle and the rest and the fighting that the Taskmaster, Ghost, Yelena, and U.S. Agent was involved in. So that introduces another antagonist that ends up, you know, in the end becoming a part of the team. But at the time, you know, he becomes the antagonist of the episode, and you really get to see the depth of his power. So, but that sets the scene for the story. And then from that initial moment, they basically find a way to escape, and they team up. And from there, their job, they're trying to look to see what Val is doing, which they discovered that Val, you know, in her coming back to try to make sure that they're dead, she discovered that Bob was in there. She didn't even know her company was doing this crazy experiment on this guy. Sees the power and the ability in him, and she shifts gears. She pivots really quickly to now try to make him her, you know, her shield around the world, right? And I say that way because that's what in Avengers 2, that's what Tony Stark was trying to do. And that's why the whole events of Avengers 2 happened, because you know, Voltron basically came from Tony trying to put a shield over the Earth to deal with the cosmic powers that have been coming and interfering with the world. I'm about to say the US, but with the entire world, right? Obviously Thanos and all of these guys that are coming out, even Thor, right? So but going back, so Val's on that same type of mission. She has that same type of ambition. And she sees this guy, she sees some of the power he possesses, and she's like, okay, I'm going to use him. So the anti-heroes are coming together and saying, wait a minute, not only do we want to get revenge on Val, we need to also stop her from using this guy, because this guy, you know, he seems to be a bit unstable, and in the wrong hands, like, it could be a real issue for everybody. So that sets the scene for the movie, and you're just brought into some of the most amazing action scenes and some of the more real heartfelt moments in I would say MCU lore, just because of the depth of these characters. So storyline, phenomenal. I say all that to say I'm giving that storyline a 9, right? Now, I didn't give it a full out 10 because I think there was some more to explore there with Taskmaster. I would love to really iron her out and have her more in the story, because I feel like we just lost her so much. I would also like to get a little bit more understanding on why Bob survived when the other test subjects didn't survive, and what I mean by that. So Bob what was, I think he was just wandering around. I'm not going to say the place because I don't know it right now, and I'm not Eric Voss. I don't have the team. All right, I already told y'all that. Okay, give me boys some slack. But you know, and why do I keep saying Eric Voss? That's New Rockstar. Y'all check them out. They give the real in-depth reviews. Their content is amazing. Like, I don't watch any Marvel movie without watching the breakdown from those guys. Okay, but this is just my version. This is the Cleet the Geek version. Okay, all right. Anyway, so he's wandering around this area, and he he gets approached by a guy that's like, hey, listen, you want to try this new experimental drug? This is, it's going to give you all this and that. And he's like, hey, listen, I'm just wondering, I don't care, right? He's coming from a background where he's been abused, and he's like, listen, I don't care. So he goes and he actually makes it through the trials, and he gets all of these powers that makes him the Sentry, right? And we find out in the movie that because he has such a dark past, he literally gets a split personality because of the powers, right? So Sentry, being the better part of him, has all the abilities, and then the Void, which is what we see played out in the movie, is it's almost like it's like the split personality of him, right? So and the Void has the same power and ability, but he's doing it for darkness and self-gain, right? So that's the whole plot of the movie. So I gave it a 9 out of 10. But I gave it a 10 out of 10 because I really do like the storyline, but I just have a few of those things that they bothered me, Sorry, I get that from Doggy. That's Doggy from Sirius Radio. He always say it bothered me. Anyway, if you know it, you know it. If you don't, hey, don't judge me. Okay, now moving on. Let's dive into the quality of the acting. Man, once again, I had to, so I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I had to kind of tailor this down to make it an 8.9. I would have really gave this a 10.10 because I don't see any acting in it that was weak. But that's standard with Marvel. Like, I don't recall well, no, actually, there's some Disney Plus Marvel stuff that acting was terrible. So let me not say that. But the movies, when you get to this level, like pound for pound, like no one is weak. Everyone was believable. Everyone had their depth to them. They had humor. They had just the human element, right? Like, they really believed there were these characters. So maybe the Bob character, he was a little muted for me, but I didn't mind it. I think it's what that character needed. He needed to kind of be almost like, just kind of, out of it and not stable. So I think he played that well. Quality acting. So I gave it a 9 out of 10. I'm not gonna spend too much in this section because I kind of spent a lot of time talking about in the storyline. I think Yelena as the lead, as one of the leads, she did great. Like, I was really, I was concerned that, if she would be able to carry majority of the movie, but she really brought you into her world and the depression and the loss of the lack of identity that she had. And I think she really did a good job of, showing growth throughout the movie, from the beginning of the movie to at the end, where she started to feel comfortable operating in a more heroic role. And you see at the end, at the press conference, she even smirks a little bit because she likes that feeling, where she told herself she didn't like it for so many years. She saw her sister, Black Widow, accept that role and make that shift, and she kind of like resented her for it for so many years. But you can see she finally came full circle in her evolution and realizing that this is actually something I always wanted too. So it was good to see that with her. So acting wise, that was great. Bucky did a good job of kind of being that moral compass for the team, even though he wasn't like, like a Captain American level moral compass. But he did that role really well. And I think he also showed you like this place that he was in, where he wasn't fully realized in what his new role was. And he was daily trying to just move beyond, being an agent and being out in the field to kind of just being this guy that guides, right? And, it was a really interesting evolution for him because he's always been like the hired gun. He shows up and you see, and I mean, he actually brought some of the most best scenes in the movie, like come on now. He rolled up on the Red Guardian, and the scene where it's the Red Guardian is the U.S. agent is Ghost and Helena, and they're in the limo from the Red Guardian, and they're escaping from the facility, and they're being pursued by some of Val's henchmen, and he comes in like your boy from Terminator, like on a motorcycle, shooting the cars up. It was that right there, fire. Like that was a scene of scenes. So, Bucky still has that ability to do that, but it was good to see him on the, kind of like guide role where he wasn't always fighting, even though he did have to do a lot of fighting in this movie. So, quality of acting, 10 out of 10, really, but I gave it a 9 because I needed to make that 8.9 work. I'm sorry, y'all. I had to make it work. But really, truly is a 10, which means my score should go up, but I got to commit to my score. I already posted it. All right, I'm out there. I gave my first initial score. Okay. Now, let's move on to plot consistency, right? Now, taking the whole context of the movie, I think the consistency was there. I think it did a great job of setting the stage for the next phase of the MCU, right? At the very end, you see that they are the new Avengers, which is, is kind of like a working name that they were given at that press conference, but they aren't really the definition of what Avengers have been, right? So you see the very interesting dynamic or you see the news clippings of people like, that ain't my Avengers, I'm not accepting that. And I think that's really cool because it's like they have this identity issue, which plays into how they've been, right? They don't know who they are, and they're developing that. So, me personally, I hope they do go back to the Thunderbolts name, because I think it's fitting. But in the time of the storyline, they are the new Avengers. They have the facility. They got all the resources from Val because, I didn't talk about this in the storyline section, but at the very end, when they finally get the Sentry, which was at the Void in his antagonist form, right? As the antagonist, the Void was the antagonist. Even Sentry played the antagonist for a little bit when he didn't know what he was doing. But in that whole fight scene and that whole transition, the Thunderbolts, the team, they're able to help him basically solve his problem and fight against the Void within him, which freed all of the people who were turning to shadows. Let's just take a pause there. That was spooky, man. Like this dude was just, it started off with him turning a child into a shadow. Like, yo, like my wife and I, we was in the theater like, yo, the baby? We gonna do the baby like that? So that was crazy. But it was good to find out when Helena turned to a shadow that they weren't dead. Cause I'm like, yo, they getting snapped? Like, this is crazy. So I'm glad that was reversible. That really made it more dissectable in the theater. But anyway, you get through the whole climax of the movie and you get to the end, and Val basically takes an opportunity after they've helped the guy and they're coming out of the Void verse basically, and they're walking up on Val, they're about to confront her, and she runs them right into a press conference where she introduces them as the new Avengers. So because of that, you see Helena whispers in the air like, we own you now. So you see in the post-credit scene that they have resources from Val. They're basically in the former Avengers Tower, which now they're the new Avengers. So I guess it's still the Avengers Tower. Hey, if you want to call it that, that's it. It is what it is. And so they're able to have all this technology. They're able to see oncoming threats and all of those things, right? So they get this ding that there's something coming to the atmosphere. Now, I find it really cool that Helena was operating in the role that Black Widow was operating in when it was after the snap, and she was basically, her and Captain America were the only ones holding on to the Avengers. So I find it fitting, another full circle moment for Helena to be operating in the role her sister operated in. Even though the U.S. Agent is trying to be, he's kind of like the Steve Rogers for her, but he's not like as morally based as him. So it's an interesting dynamic, right? How they did that, but I thought it was cool. So anyway, we get to the post-credit scenes and we find out that the Fantastic Four are coming into the atmosphere. Now, if you go watch New Rock Stars breakdown, they talk about how it's a possibility that, Galaxus destroys their world, based off of, we're only going off of the preview, right? We don't know that this has actually happened. No one's seen the movie, obviously, but what we can gather in the reviewer space, right, is that their world gets destroyed and they have to flee their world. And it's fitting that you see in the post-credit scene, you see their ship coming into their world. So, the the stretch guy, Reed, God, I can't think of his name, but y'all know who I'm talking about. The leader of the Fantastic Four. I'm gonna get that name because that's gonna bother me. But anyway, he somehow finds a way to go between the multiverses. At some point in that movie, he's gonna find a way to get them out of there because somehow they're coming from their world into the MCU that we know, right? The main world. So with that being said, the plot consistency is great. That's another one that I think it does a good job in tying into the next phase. Now, what other things about the plot that I didn't like? So once again, Taskmaster, I would have liked to have a little bit more on her. I would have liked to have a little bit more on my guy, Bob, and how he was able to survive the trials. So for that reason, I gave this an 8 out of 10, right? Still very high score, but I would have liked to get a little bit more background on those things. I also would have liked to get a little bit more background on Bucky and his transition into the Congress, and why what's the motivation for doing that. They did do a good job of kind of catching you up, but I feel like they could have spent a little bit more time on that. But yeah, that is why I gave it that. Now we're gonna go to visuals, and we're gonna shift right into the visuals and the camera angles and the CGI, right? This is where we talk about all the cool stuff. Man, another high score, 9 out of 10 for this. Listen, I can't give everything a 10, even though I off of my initial review of something, I want to give everything a 10. I realize that's not realistic, okay? So I gave this a 9 out of 10. And why? Well, I thought it was phenomenal. I thought all of the graphics and the CGI was believable. Like the shadow effect was amazing. Like it was literally like just dropping people, and it's like the way that it deleted the person essentially was just a sight to see. And it was just like kind of like nerve-wracking, like how it was just like so instant. So I thought that was a really good technique that was used from a CGI standpoint. What else? The fight scenes, phenomenal. I thought the way that those were shot, some were shot with some continuous camera angles. I thought those were amazing. I thought it just, it felt like your classic MCU movie, just high quality, top of the line. Everything just looks great. Color grading is good. I thought the tone of the movie, the color grading was really leveled, right? It was very dark in the dark scenes. It was very dull. Like thinking about the scene with Yelena and the Red Guardian are in his apartment. It kind of has this orange, this brownish, dark, kind of like dull, depressed, like we're not doing nothing with our lives. We're lost. We don't have any purpose. We don't have any identity. I think the color grading really did great with that. Obviously for the Void to be fully blacked out, and then like it forces you to keep trying to make out his face when he was talking. I thought that was really cool. So yeah, really great effects, 9 out of 10. Probably give that a 9.5 to be honest, but I had to make that scoring work. I had to make it work, okay? All right. And then predictability. Let's wrap it up with predictability. So, is it highly predictable or not? That's how I score this. And I thought it was somewhat very predictable, right? It's because immediately once I saw that Val has sent them on a suicide mission, I'm like, okay, this is Suicide Squad, right? And of course, I could make that, I can come to that conclusion from looking at the previews, right? I'm like, okay, this is going to be their version of Suicide Squad. It's the anti-heroes, it's the bad guys. They're coming together and they're going to be a good guy, right? Good guy team. So I thought that was pretty predictable. What was unpredictable was how the Sentry guy was created. Now, let's go back to another reason, because I forgot why I gave the plot consistency at 8. There was a big reason I gave that. And this is something that this movie couldn't necessarily answer, but this is a bigger question for the MCU. It's like, I find it very interesting with I gotta look this up too, because I need to know Vision. Vision. Okay, thank you. All right, got it. So with Vision, right? Go follow me with this. Vision from, the Avenger movies and everything, and then you got Sentry. I find it very crazy how on Earth they're able to create these extraterrestrial, basically, powers that are so powerful that they're like as powerful as Thanos and these other cosmic powers. So that's a bit of a plot hole for me, because I don't understand, like, Sentry, like, how were they able to make him so powerful? Like, he's literally the Superman of the MCU, right? Like, invincible, like from hits, super fast, super strong, has the ability of flight, and then he has some telepathic ability, essentially, right? He's able to get into your dream state and stuff like that. So, like, he's just so powerful. And I mean, I thought Vision was powerful, but he's more powerful than Vision. So, for him to be made in a lab, that's like, okay, y'all just can make people in the labs like that. I mean, even the Hulk his power is crazy, but you saw that even though he was very powerful on Earth, when he came to Thanos, he was just like another guy. So I'm curious on how the Sentry character is going to play in the future for the for the next phase of the MCU, and how they're going to use him. But yeah, that goes back to I wanted to go back and touch that point why I gave it an 8. I knew there was a reason why I gave it an 8, and I couldn't think of it in the moment. Now let's finish it off with predictability. So I gave it a 7 out of 10 because it was like pretty spot on, right? You can look at the previews, you knew what this was going to be about. I think the only thing that gave it that bit of like surprise, right, was the bit of a twist was the post-credit scenes, but that's technically not part of the movie, right? So I would say it's obvious that they were going to come together, work together, defeat the antagonists, and then somehow come out as a team. So that was very predictable, but sometimes predictability isn't a bad thing, right? But this score is all about, does it have a plot twist? Does it have something that really throws you off, that has you jaw dropped? I don't think I was jaw dropped in any moment, but the predictability didn't bother me. But I gave it a 7 out of 10, right? So when you combine all those together, let's take a look at, I put it up on the screen here. We'll take a look at all the scores, and you'll see how they bubble up to the 8.9. So listen, this is your boy Cleet the Geek. This is the Cleet the Geek review. We'll do this on the movies that are just amazing. Like, this is an amazing movie. I look forward to the next phase in MCU. I think that one is going to be the Fantastic Four. So I'm excited for that to come out. And, make sure you like, subscribe. Make sure you comment. Let me know, like, what you thought. What did you grade? If you were to go through this rubric that I've created, how would you grade it on each level, and what would be your final score? Okay, you add them all up and average it out, and then you let me know what your final score. You can talk to me in the comments. Let's talk these movies. This is a great time, and this is a great time for just MCU and just for content creation. So I'm excited to review more movies. Make sure y'all keep following your boy, and I'll be back with more content. All right, y'all take it easy.